Hello LPL and League of Legends fans alike. It is June 26, 2023. Week number 4 inside the LPL has come to an end. Let's talk a little bit about it and we'll preview week 5 and everything that's coming ahead of us inside the LPL. So for starters, let's talk about the standings. There are two teams that are clearly above the rest inside this league. JD Gaming and Bilibili Gaming both sit with a record of 8-1. Bilibili, of course, have one loss that was to JD Gaming a couple weeks ago, and JD Gaming's first and only loss of the season was their first matchup of the split, going up against Weibo Gaming, who currently sit at a record of 5-3. So that's very clearly just the MSI hangover, rather than Weibo Gaming being this dominant team or JD even struggling. But before we talk about JD Gaming, I want to talk about Bilibili, because something that's really interesting is since the end of the spring split, so not the playoffs, I'm counting entire playoffs of spring, I'm talking the entire tournament of MSI, and now I'm talking everything up until this point of week 5 of the LPL, Bilibili Gaming has lost to only one team, and it happens to be the team that they are trailing in the LPL, JD Gaming. Think about that. That's all of playoffs throughout spring. That's all of an international tournament, and you still only lose to a team that is inside your own region. I think that's something that's really being missed by people, specifically when I talk about JD and Bilibili being the best two teams in the world. They both got to the finals of MSI. They both have performed incredibly well since the end of MSI. These two teams go up against any other team in the entire world. I don't think they're going to lose. I think the only exception is Bilibili is going to continue to lose to JD Gaming until they figure out a new strategy to beat them. And as far as JD Gaming, I mean, I made a video about them earlier in the week on my YouTube channel where I think if they perform well or win worlds, you have to say this is probably the best team of all time. This is a team that is incredible. They look on form every single game. They did look a little shaky at the start of the season, and I talked negatively about some of their other roles. However, it's very clear that they have the same cut and dry strategy, which is just play through their bot lane. So you don't need your top lane, mid lane jungler to always be 100% on par. These guys are able to try new things or implement new strategies or do anything different than the normal, which is I think what allows them to continue to be so dominant, is that they have this clear cut structure of bot lane will not lose, and they never do. A couple other teams that are close by to the top 2 spots on LPL, Top Esports, OMG, LNG, Weibo Gaming, Team Wii, that kind of rounds out the top 7 teams in the league. None of them are going to beat Bilibili or JD in playoffs. Absolutely none of them. I've seen a lot of people talk about OMG. Maybe I'm missing something with OMG. I do know they did a pretty good run in spring. They took Bilibili to a full series, but I just don't see them beating any of these two teams, and that's the way you have to look at it. If you're looking at the LPL from a player playoff standpoint, you have to look at it as which teams are gonna beat JD Gaming or Bilibili Gaming, and the answer is within the LPL, I don't see a single team that in a best of 5 series is capable of beating either one of those two teams. So what is interesting about this to look at, though, is, of course, when we get to playoffs, it's going to be Bilibili, JD Gaming will be the two favorites, and I would say JD Gaming would be the favorite to win the entire playoff. However, they do get to send 4 teams to Worlds this year, so it's going to be interesting to see which two teams go alongside JD Gaming and Bilibili Gaming, because to me, that is where the rest of the league becomes a lot more interesting, because if you take out those two teams, if you take out JD Gaming and Bilibili Gaming, with the exception of Top Esports, who are sitting at a record of 7-2, as we saw earlier today, they are definitely benefiting from an easy schedule, as they did just lose to Team Wii. There are only 2 series wins separated from number 4 in the standings and number 13 in the standings. That means there is a huge opportunity for many teams in this league to scoot up and get a good position heading into the playoffs, and or really take control and dominate against these other teams in the playoffs. Because like it or not, there is an element to this esport where people talk about international play, and ultimately if you can sneak into international tournament like Worlds as the 4th seed from China, you know, you're going to want to do that regardless of who you are or what your record is through summer. You'll find support, you'll find fans, you'll find people who enjoy that you're representing their country or their favorite region at an international tournament. And from some positive stuff, let's talk about negative stuff, and I feel like I've talked about these teams all summer split. LGD Gaming, Invictus Gaming, Anyone's Legend, Thunder Talk all have less than 3 wins throughout the entire series. Although there is a little bit of a silver lining with Thunder Talk, Anyone's Legend, and Invictus Gaming all winning their last game of week 4 to bring their record to 2-7. Unfortunately, LGD Gaming lost their game this week and they fall to a 1-8 with an 11% series win and a sad 27% game win within those series. It's pretty disappointing to see teams struggle this bad throughout the league, but that's the reason we have so many teams. That's the reason we have a league, is because there are going to be teams that do this, and I'm sure these teams have fans and these players want to improve, and it's encouragement and it's signs for growth from these organizations. As we've said all year, once you fall this low, it's really hard to keep falling. You can't get much lower than 1-8 as LGD fans, so keep your head high and look for them to be on the up and up, or sell their team or change their roster or do something different. So now let's look ahead to week 5 and see if any matches excite me. First off, Tuesday, June 27th, Billy Gaming and JDG Gaming are both in action in the same day. They're not playing each other, but they do both play, which is always a good time to watch all of those games. The following Thursday, Team Wii plays LNG. Now, Team Wii is an interesting team because, as we talked about, they started the season 4-0, then they left to go represent China in another international tournament. They came back and they lost their first 2 games. However, today, they did just beat Top Esports. And going up next week, they're playing against LNG, another top-tier team. So to me, more than beating Top Esports, this matchup against LNG is going to be the matchup where we really decide if Team Wii is even a relevant team, or if they are a team that just benefited from not really having to play too many challenging teams, because we know Top Esports had a relatively easy schedule, as we've seen them struggle against relatively close in comparison teams throughout the entire season. But that's pretty much it for today's video, guys. Thank you so much for watching. I've enjoyed making these videos all summer split. You guys continuing to support with liking and subscribing means the world. It does nothing but motivate me more and more to make videos faster and better and increase the content. I'll see you all tomorrow, and let's enjoy week number 5 of the LPL.